Hit record. Okay, welcome. This is the one of many new worker proposal reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing the FIO Rev Ops proposal from Wayne. So Wayne, take it away.
All right, thanks, Pavo. Yeah, I put the presentation in Sunday. Pavo and I had some discussions yesterday afternoon. There may be some overlap, so we may have to do some follow-ups on this, but I'll go ahead and share the presentation I have presented, state kind of what the KPIs are, what the goal is with this, with the new team structure, and then answer any questions. So let me see, share my screen. Share the right one. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. All right. So this one we're calling FIO Growth Rev Ops Worker Proposal. We're consolidating worker proposals for one Rev Ops strategy, and I'll show you kind of what's included there. I'll go over to work WP consolidation, current existing work proposals, and where I got my budget calculations from. To start with, that's where I said there was some discrepancies there that we may have to talk through. The team, kind of what the Rev Ops team structure is going to look like, responsibilities and qualifications. And that's strictly for internal, but I want to show it just to show the budget breakdown. I know obviously this is going to be one worker proposal, but there's multiple job functions within there. So that's why we still I still have it broken down, but I'll go over the overall, because there is a couple of major overarching KPIs for the worker proposal, and then there'll be individuals where we'll be able to gauge the performance of individuals. I'll go over the monthly budget and then strategic objectives and KPIs that we'll be talking about here. Consolidate. So go straight through that. And this is where I got my calculations. So I took brand marketing down 905, excluding the website and tech side of it. That's the total there. These are the starting totals of the current worker proposals. Partner marketing, I was accounting for 6,900. Acquire partners, 34,000. Partner success, 15,200. Dashboard, this is where Pavo and I had the discussion, because he was effectively reducing that to 0. I had a different outlook. I was taking that amount and then reducing from there, so that may change some of the calculations, but just taking the marketing, dashboard marketing portion only, which was added at the last budget discussion, was put under Dow 39. And then I took integration support. Then we have a little bit of discrepancy here, but just 4,000 of the 5,200. And after Emily had talked to Eric, that's what was part of the integration support side. And then Dow 1312, expansion to Latin America. Everything Adil has and his strategy and staff there is going to be consolidated into this one. So based on these numbers, that current monthly spend is 102,171 that we have there. So looking at the consolidation into one Rev Ops model focused on growth, FIO growth, basically. Marketing, sales, partner success. The spend off of this number here is 25.91%. With the discrepancies, I would propose that after Pavo, this is proposal, we look at and we look at what could be approved. We look at the total spend, but that's what I was calculating when we put this presentation together. Show you the team, Rev Ops team structure. So Rev Ops, we have a lead in the ops, and then we'll be handling marketing, community events, ad campaigns, sales, which would be partnerships, software as a service when we have the Medikeep product available. And then also one of the things that I've got in my strategy is to also help to try to pour some fuel in the fire of the affiliate program. We've had quite a few people sign up for the affiliates. Not many of them are generating a lot, but coming up with a toolkit, kind of a best practice and tools for affiliates to drive domain sales. And then partner success and partner integration combined into one, because those should be together as well. This is just to show our structure. So we have the Rev Ops team. I'll be the work proposal lead on this one, Rev Ops growth. Emily be working data analyst ops across all areas of our worker proposal. Adil will be the marketing manager. Marie handling marketing ops, and then content creation, which is where we need to add some capacity to. Chelsea, Ren, Anastasia, Khan on that content creation piece. I'll also be playing a part in that role as well. It's just something I enjoy doing, so I'll be lending a hand in there as well and helping to work with Adil and the team to guide that strategy. Looking to keep Litan and Adam Yu as community managers. And then on the BD side, I will still be managing BD, much smaller team. Mike is going to be the head rep, also SaaS lead, helping to drive revenue, driving sales of the Medikeep product and any other revenue products we generate. I've got some pieces ready to go on the education side that I mentioned in my last work proposal update, where I was building educational products that we could offer as a sale also. So Micah will lead that whole sales side. And then I've got one other rep working part-time, Rumi. He is based out in Nigeria with a specific focus of projects out there that are driving user adoption. As we know, in Nigeria, there is a lot of usage of crypto, not just investing and speculating, but there's a lot more utilization. And this is someone I've worked with in a past project and just brought him on recently. It actually reduced my pay some to bring him in. So he's been with the team a couple months now, just getting acclimated, and he's starting to schedule calls now. And then on partner success, Emily would be the partner success manager. Gil would help run partner support along with Marie, dealing with partners, following up on integrations, any marketing agreements. And this is going to be more than just what we've seen in the past, where we have an integration, we have an announcement, we do maybe a Twitter space or something, and we do a one-time thing. But this is going to be ongoing communication and building relationships with our partners to do ongoing collaborations and marketing, and there's things that where we're working together to drive awareness to the protocol, including a partner support newsletter that's going to go out to our integration partners and all our potential integration partners that have joined the mailing list, to keep them up to date what's happening with FIO, highlight success stories, just trying to drip on them also to expand on this existing integrations, add additional features. And then Adam will be retained at mostly a part-time capacity to help provide integration support. That's as integrations come, be able to answer those questions. But also, Adam, along with a few others, have been very helpful when joining some of our BD calls with potential integration partners when it comes to discussing what's possible, what's potentially possible, helping us to piece that together. And all workers here have a proven track record with FIO DAO already. So responsibility is just to kind of show you the breakdown of this worker proposal. Rev Ops, we will be strategizing, increasing alignment between marketing, sales, partner success. You know, we just recently started a call back up already with those groups, even prior to proposing this consolidation, because that's what's going to drive the most effective outcome, which is going to be driving revenue, which revenue should drive user adoption. And that's the two main goals, is to drive revenue for the foundation to keep us operational, and to drive utilization and the ecosystem of the protocol so that it can be used and be widely known by people. RevOps is also going to be tracking and data. Marketing is going to manage all FIO-owned social channels. We're going to expand on some of those channels into some decentralized areas and utilize Adil strategies that he proposed on a smaller scale as proposed for the Latin American one, and expand that to all the social media channels, all the platforms. We've got a PR strategy, influencer strategy, ad spend strategy. And that's one of those things that we've been doing a lot of research and testing, and there's still going to be some testing, but we're going to identify what is most effective and pour fuel on that fire. Also, another reason for ramping up the content creation is develop educational content to establish FIO as a trusted source on crypto and blockchain. So if we're going to make crypto easier and say that, then when people come to our site, they should learn some of the basics as well. So whether they come to our site, they look at our socials, they look at our YouTube channel, we've got to incorporate all of that into those areas. And as I mentioned earlier about the affiliate program, we're going to develop affiliate resources to improve affiliate domain sales success. In essence, an affiliate toolkit to help them get better at driving sales, because anybody can grab an affiliate link and post it somewhere. But if they can create the right funnel using some of the tools that we can create, some of those affiliates are really great at creating funnels, but how are they going to tell that FIO story to get someone to buy a domain? And that's what we're going to work on helping with. Sales BD, grow the FIO ecosystem through integration partners with a focus on large partners. We're not going to dismiss the smaller partners, but we know we all say, oh, if we have another Opera, I've got a list of partners that we already have started communication with that we're going back to. Got a meeting Friday with Brave. There's a few other proposals I'll be bringing to the steering committee soon, because there's a couple of large partners that are willing to integrate. But we've also already streamlined that by bringing in Rev Ops and having Emily and Marie to help across things. Small partners, a lot of those just need a dashboard agreement. So streamlining that process to where we can get those. So we're not going to turn down any integrations unless it's just not a fit or not good for the optics of FIO. But we're going to put a big focus on acquiring those large partners that can bring in massive amounts of users. And then partner success is going to work with existing partners to complete integrations and increase adoption, usability, and scope of these integrations. This is something Emily and I have already started. We started following up one with our most communicative and the highest, I guess you say the highest value, most potential in a partner, to talk about either improving placement of the FIO protocol. Give an example, Edge is one of them. Obviously, Edge has the features integrated. It's just we talked through some of the optimization they could do with placement and also prompts that the user would get. And then with Garda was different. Garda has a great interface, been a long time supporter of FIO. They have handles enabled, but not domains. So discussing that and also some placements. And we're going to continue to go through those existing partners. And some of our partners, as they grow, it's going to be feasible to go back to them and say, hey, look, all right, maybe you integrated a dashboard. How about native, or how about adding these features? And just showing them what's in it for them. What do they get out of it? And then engage with partners and their communities through ongoing collaborations. This is what I alluded to earlier when I was talking about partner success, is making sure that this is an ongoing exposure piece, and this is not a one-time announcement. We're excited to announce you've integrated. Let's do a Twitter space to talk about it. And then we never revisit that partner again. So this is going to be something that they're going to work together within this one work proposal between partner success and the content creation team to continue to pour fuel on that fire and market to those other communities more than once. We know when it comes to marketing and exposure, it's usually a one-time visibility thing is not effective. But if someone sees the same thing, 3, 4, 5 times, it starts to work on that, just the psyche of the person that's being marketed to, that, okay, let me look more into this. There's something more to this. Also, as I mentioned, provide integration support. Oh, go back to that, and maintain a partner newsletter that I mentioned earlier. Keep partners up to date, FIO and the integration benefits. So let's go over our monthly budget of what we've gone down to. So within this worker proposal, total spend $75,700. We do have a full breakdown link there, which I'll go through in the next few slides. But this will just help us allocate costs and look at where we were cutting from each area. So Rev Ops 12,000, marketing 25,700, sales 16,700, and partner success 21,200. Should give you the structure. So from the Rev Ops side, I'll be the work proposal lead, focus on growth. Emily will also work under Rev Ops as data analyst and ops. Here just kind of shows you our portion there. Under marketing, Adil will be the head running the marketing strategy in collaboration with myself, and Marie is going to help to organize the structure and ensure everything happens, keep up with the scheduling and calendar. And then content creation, got Chelsea, Wren, and Anastasia, as we see here. The point was to add more capacity for those to be able to actually dedicate time to what's needed when something is needed as well. And then, as I mentioned before, community managers, as added here, as of right now, it's an $8,000 of media spend. Now that could be ads, campaigns, events, etc. We talked about a few things, running ads on Brave. We talked about certain PR strategies, partnering with certain influencers after vetting them to make sure that they work properly. Certain events where we can get better exposure. We've recently been trying to maximize that exposure with our minimal spend, but using different strategies that Adil had proposed in his proposal as well, and different strategies. As we mentioned, I talked to a few of you And it was like, we're gonna try and see, we're gonna have strategies designed to test on small scale and then pour fuel on the fires that ones that work, all focused on driving growth of FIO usability, FIO awareness, and obviously that should generate revenue back to the foundation. On the sales side, I'll be the biz dev manager here as well. Micah will be the BD rep / SaaS lead. Rumi will be BD rep part-time. And then we've got travel spend, which we left as is. It's something that we can definitely do, keeping it there. And then tools, these are just different BD subscriptions, DocuSign, and a few others that we have allocated there. And then worker commission bounties. Obviously, this could potentially go away at some point, but there's still a few pending integrations out there that actually have bounties tied to them when the partner finishes them. So as we cycle through those, this should potentially go away, because any new commissions are going to be based off of revenue generated and also sales generated from the SaaS model. So it should not have to come out of a budgeted dollar amount. It should be a portion of what's generated from that revenue. Partner success. Emily is the partner success manager. You can see I got Gil and Marie, as I mentioned. FIO tokens for testing, just a small amount as they test different processes from integrations that are going live. And then Adam providing integration support and also support on calls with potential partners. So the consolidation, that was our total spend, 75,700. Let's talk about some KPIs real quick. Strategic objectives, KPIs. So strategic objectives, the why, tell a compelling story. The users, increase FIO protocol utilization. That's really the end goal. And then the money, we got to enable economic sustainability for the foundation is what we have to focus on. So revenue to the foundation, that is the main KPI. The 5% of chain fees, SaaS fees, whatever we generate, driving people to the dashboard as well, where our TPIT is attached, is going to be part of that strategy. That's the overarching one. And some of these are secondary KPIs down below that are going to lead to the success of hitting those. We'll be measuring monthly domain registrations and renewals, and all these are going to be focused on growth, a percentage growth month over month. FIO crypto handles, FIO crypto handle registrations, add bundles, and then the average partner deal size, partner MAUs, number of deals we'll be tracking internally as well. Cost per customer, lead via campaign. That's something we're going to do to measure the effectiveness of that, which in turn, like I said, all this is going to funnel up to the one overarching KPI of revenue, customer acquisition cost. We'll be measuring audience growth rate, net new followers, total followers, and also engagement of that audience. We've got, there's been quite a few comments about our social media presence, social media, the content that's out there in agreement. So we're going to focus on a aggressive growth strategy to grow the net number of followers, grow the engagement, and then also on the integration side, just integration deadline, being able, average days complete integrations or past MOU deadline, still to make sure that we're on track to get those integrations out in a timely manner so that we can then generate more revenue by marketing that integration and getting that partners, users and followers to utilize the protocol, driving more revenue back to the foundation. And that's it. So now I'm open up for questions.
Great stuff. On the KPIs, do you actually have numbers associated with those, or is it still being designed?
Still being designed. I mean, obviously it's going to be month over month growth. Yeah, Ashley Deck is in that link that Pavo shared, but I just noticed her comment. Yeah, so look, that's still, I'm open for whatever do we want to set, 5, 10. I'm thinking at the point we are now, we should be experiencing at least 25% growth per quarter. A year from now, we should be 100, our growth in revenue generation should at least be 100% or more over where we are now. Obviously, I mean, in mind, I've got something more aggressive, but that's what that's what we'll be at least gauging a baseline on.
I think it'd be helpful for me to see that actually spelled out in terms of like, okay, here's our growth right now, revenue wise, because it's like so small. you know,
Yeah.
even 100% growth is like not gonna
True.
significantly
Yeah.
impact the runway in a year, right? So just kind of thinking through, you know, because a big part of this for me is really, you know, a story that makes sense, something that's like I'm confident or have some level of confidence that this is going to be something that we get direct influence over to change our destiny. And that's been one of my personal biggest concerns, is that I feel like our destiny is essentially controlled by, you know, 4% of the world's in crypto. Let's say, you know, let's say some gigantic thing happens and you get, you know, 100 million new crypto users. All of a sudden there might be a different change, right? But I want to see a strategy that looks like we have some control over something, and that would be equated to, we do this, this happens, the revenue increases this much, the runway extends by this much. Like if I could see things in those terms, I'm going to have the most, that's ultimately what I'm going to try to back into to figure out, if we do this and we start measuring it over the next, you know, few quarters, this is what we're going to try to expect to see, which is going to extend the runway by this amount, and I'm going to feel good about it. And if we're not hitting those numbers, then I'm back to where I was before, where I'm like, I don't know that we really have the right levers to pull yet. So if we could put some numbers on those KPIs, and then equate that into not just percentage growth of revenue, but actually like eventually into extension of runway, that'd be great. And I really do like that you're framing things in terms of percentage of revenue would be part of the incentives going forward. I do think that's the right model, especially for sales. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, I do think having some numbers would be valuable, and having, you know, an understanding of what the goal is, even just to get the whole overall worker proposal to the point where you would see it as sort of net neutral, meaning that you know, what it's doing is generating as much income to the foundation as what it's costing.
Yeah, you could say, David, so probably similar like what I was doing for acquired partners, where I started measuring percent of spend to basically revenue generated to get that percentage more on par, just to where it's like you said, net neutral eventually.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it's just fundamentally, it's sort of absent changes in the market. It's gotta be, you know, get to net neutral at least at some point, if not better than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's including, you know, chain generated, you know, fees for the foundation, everything, right?
Yeah.
I have a bunch of questions.
Sure.
So, and comments, I guess, in terms of the KPIs, I think I would suggest actually simplifying them down. I think you probably have too many to kind of effectively focus on. Like, I think things like partner size and number of integrations should not even be a KPI. I think it actually gives you a false incentive. It gives you an incentive to just sign up, you know, partners without necessarily looking at whatever they're actually generating revenue, right? So I think that would already be covered by your number one KPI, which is the revenue to the foundation. And I agree that should be the most important KPI, and that is basically what is going to be offsetting your burn, right? And that's what we're going to be watching. If you spend, you know, X and you generated Y, you know, as soon as Y equals X, then we know you're breaking even, right? So we can kind of track that trend and see what's happening. So remove the also the audience growth. And engagement. I don't think that's a valid KPI, and I'll talk about that in a second. And also for the cost of customer lead, I would actually replace that with a return on ad spend, right? So you are actually proposing to spend some dollars to acquire revenue, basically, right? So I would like to see that calculation completed, you know, regularly as a KPI, saying, hey, we spent $8,000 in May, and we generated $2,000 of revenue. And then the following month, from that same 8,000, we generated 4,000 of revenue, right? So we can now see that you're making a progression, and it's irrespective of, you know, what is the engagement and the audience growth. And that's actually the other comment I have, or maybe that's a question, is I I see a lot of focus in this worker proposal towards kind of marketing within the exist. That's kind of a phrase I coined recently, within our own bubble, right? So we have a bubble of followers on our social channels. We have a bubble of users that get our email, and we tend to recycle and basically talk to this bubble alone, right? And I've seen this very much so on the dashboard side, where initially when we started to talk to that audience, there was some interest, and people like, oh, well, now the dashboard, I can buy and pay with credit card, whatever. There was some activity, but over time, if you keep talking to the same people, they're kind of gonna be less interested. I already bought my domain, and whatever is the greatest post that you're gonna push on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and whatever they engage and say, yeah, that's very nice. At the end of the day, that doesn't translate to sales. So my question to you is, what new techniques do you plan to experiment with to try to get outside of that bubble, rather than constantly, continue to communicate to the bubble?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely something. I mean, you and I talked about that in person, Pavo. We've got to change that, and we've got to try different strategies. And we've got a ton. I can in a second I can let Adil to speak to a few, but I'll just tell you what we've got is we're looking at different ad strategies, right? To hit those people, whether it's Brave ads or other types of targeted ads. I mean, even not everything is going to work, but we're going to test and see what works to get outside of that bubble. I think the reason I keep going back to Brave ads, that's one I think that's going to be very effective in terms of when you think of traditional media ad spend. There's a PR strategy where we're gonna focus some dollars on getting more features of FIO out into different publications, just to drive word of mouth, speak to more people. And then there's some influencers that are out there, and obviously this is something that we're going to vet seriously, but there's influencer tracks that we could utilize that could get more exposure to FIO, drive more awareness in those channels where the users may even already know about ENS and Unstoppable, and can see what we bring. Because when we show the value we can bring and how we're different, that's what I think is going to sell it. We just got to get more eyes on it. So we're still going to manage those same channels. So yeah, we're still talking to the internal people that are already in that ecosystem, but we've got to expand beyond that. And so there's been, between Adil and myself over the last few months, I mean, there's been a ton of calls. I mean, before the idea to consolidate his work proposals, I was vetting a lot of people and then turning them over to Adil and others, and even existing marketing, like with Persona. That's not a great example because it didn't work, but we tried something different. Tried to get outside of that bubble. We're going to continue to look for those features that will work as well. And I think as we market to the community, or we do collaborations with the communities of our existing integration partners, that it's going to get us a good bit of those partners probably have more people in their community, or different people in their community than they had when we first did the integration. So that is also going to help bring in more from that. I want to say from the outside, it's existing partners, but I think there's a good portion of their communities we haven't reached either.
And the last comment I'll have is I think that overall it's the proposal is too expensive. I think that we should cut the costs even more. It looks like your proposal is very human heavy. So it looks like 85% of your budget is going to people. I would like to see more budget actually going to media, right? Or to activities that are explicitly taking us outside of this bubble, as opposed to basically just continue to create content and market to the same people, especially in terms of, and you touched on this, I want to, for the rest of the team, post kind of this little spreadsheet I put together here that lines out how I think the revenue breaks in terms of like if you will, to take the three major worker proposals, the infrastructure, Rev Ops, and treasurer, and overlay that with the existing spend. Just kind of looking at, the areas you're taking on and I'm taking on and Luke's taking or proposing to take on, how much of that is currently being spent. And that's where yours, in my calculation, comes out to 81,000 as opposed to 105, which is a big difference, right? And that's only, and you're proposing 75, so that's only a 7% decrease versus the areas you're proposing to take on. So I personally would like to see a bigger reduction in proposed spend there.
Yeah, that's something we go. The biggest gap was obviously dashboard marketing. You marked that to 0, kept it as part of your reduction. So that's the biggest gap because that was about 20K. I was factoring all of partner marketing as the starting point, from reduction. And then, like I mentioned, Emily had talked to Eric prior before we got together and came up with these numbers, and was looking at basically like 4,000 was partner, was going towards integration support, and I think it was about 1,200 towards SDK, and you'd split it down the middle there. So just number, which at the end of the day, like I said, I mean, we just, I'll look at what we can do as far as that spend to get lower, and then see where, when these proposals are all out there, what if we are in line with our targeted spend. But I'll take some of what you said into consideration, or all of it, and we'll have some more discussions offline about it too.
Yeah, just some extra detail. Pavel, you see, like the last spreadsheet is one for PR. So these are sourced from like a lot of PR companies to get the cheapest rates for all the other, for example, 1 month we're going to have like one PR or two, like actually talking about FIO, what problems FIO solved, instead of just like a mention. We have also influencers, like there's a spreadsheet with that, like also the cheapest rates compared to like how many, like how much reach they have. So like we're planning onto, like expanding the reach to new people. I'm sorry, there's a hammer in my house. And also we have affiliate strategy, and we have like a long list of affiliate marketers crypto posted. And so basically like the idea is not to stay like promoting to the same people, but actually partnerships. And also we have like, we're trying to get FIO as the sole domain provider to certain blockchains. Like now we're actively talking with the Flow blockchain, and they have partnership with NBA and everything. And we submitted a grant for them to pay us to integrate with them. So like we're expanding a little bit. We're not like planning just like to create content, but like distribution and partner with people that can move the needle. And of course, like as I said, like PR, affiliates, and influencers.
Yeah, there's also that content is not just going to be going to our existing channels. Like the goal of the content is to attract more eyes on it, so we have more people with the educational content. So we need our internal people to do that. Trying to outsource someone to make educational content about FIO has been a challenge, even with some of our integration partners, because they've got to study it first. So some of that content creation is going to be going towards also paired up with ad spend, PR spend, and even potentially reshares by influencers as well. So it will get to the outside of our existing followers.
Oh, I forgot to say, and also we have lots of lists of like influential people in like all social media. So we can do something similar to what like Persona did, like from what I understood from their technology. I don't know if they did that or not, but basically like you send to targeted audience. Of course, like Twitter, Facebook, and everything, they mix, even LinkedIn, the existing audience, like random audience with the list you promote. But basically we're going to be distributing. We have like a distribution strategy. It's not just like posting and hoping that people come and like it. Just to clarify.
Thanks, Adele.
I would certainly support a couple things that Pavel said. I think the point Pavel's making about reducing and simplifying the KPIs is actually a really good one. I think that's spot on, and it'd be more effective just to have a very small number of the most important things and not be having KPIs around things that are more tactics than actual desired results, so that you have flexibility on whatever tactics work
Got you.
best.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and then as far as the size of the budget, I mean, I'm probably going to be saying this on every proposal. Is I agree. We need to be. Yeah, my view is we need to cut back more, so that we don't have to do this again soon. You know, the current imputed runway from what's been proposed is obviously a reduction, but from where I stand, it doesn't buy the kind of runway that the project needs. 26 months ish is what, you know, combined across all worker proposals it's saying, and that's, you know, you have to start liquidating FIO tokens too soon to even hit the 22 sort of 6 months. I mean, just to be several months out before you have to, foundation has to start selling FIO tokens to get that runway. So I think in general, that's going to be a feeling I have on all these.
Okay. Yeah, I plan to start working some different calculations and see what we can do to where we can potentially slim down.
Papa, you finished? Yeah. Yeah. So I was just going to kind of reiterate that as well. Our strategic priorities, Wayne, are just, you know, increasing that income to foundation, increase adoption utilization. I might even just stick with those. Yeah. One thing I learned is the complexity of KPIs just doesn't make sense, right? It almost makes it harder to understand what's going on. And then these models that Luke mentioned are important, right? So similar to that subscription model that had, you know, I think that was like a 3 to 5 year model or something like that. Models like that is where you would add your kind of all those sub KPIs. You have a bunch of initiatives you're going to be doing, right? And those hopefully should either be doing one of those two things, increasing net income or adoption utilization. And I think I agree with Luke that though, you know, we're not here to micromanage, it would be good to see what that plan is, what initiatives are there and what are they driving, right? And then we can get into how do you measure those. Sometimes it gets really difficult, but just at a high level, those plans will be important. And maybe it's 2 plans, one for net income, one for adoption and utilization type thing, you know? Yeah. So, and I'm glad to help with that as well. The second piece was, yeah, on the, in terms of cutting, like, I actually don't totally agree, because if there are initiatives that have the potential to generate revenue, I do believe we should invest in those. Obviously, if we just look at this as one big cost center, then I agree. But I don't want to look at it as. So I think there's more information I need, on what this means to the runway. I think, David, you said around 26 months with all the cuts. I don't know if that factors into everything that Pablo's done as well, but I'd like to know that number. And then I'd like to see these models of what has the potential to offset, right, your spend. That's very important before I just kind of, you know, offhand say we need to cut it further or where we need to cut it, because it's hard for me to even know if you're spending this on like dashboard or say, you know, like what are those initiatives? I get it on terms of people and kind of categories, but what are those initiatives is what I'd like to know. So kind of on loop with Luke on that. Thanks.
Yeah, and we've got a good bit of that already pulled together. I just didn't want to go too much into, you know, a lot of times it's about what the overarching, the main strategies are and what budget's going to be spent and the KPIs. So I'll get all that information pulled together. We can have a follow up to this. Now, I guess I do have one question for the steering committee or the guys those that chimed in about the budget. So obviously, you know, it seems like the percentage cut we were going off of, my math's different than Pablo's math in terms of where we're allocating our starting from. And there's probably there would be some of that if there was a lot more proposals as well. So now seeing that mine's total spend 75.7, what would be a reasonable cut to that? Like, is there a certain dollar amount or range that you guys think would be in line, or another percentage off of that? What do you think? Just so I don't want to have to come back, you know, 3 different times, or
I think my answer kind of relates to my question. It's like, if I knew what your projections were in hard numbers, as far as here's what we think revenue can, because 100% increase of $1,000 a month is not interesting, right? So, you know, recognition of like, here's what we really think we can accomplish, and this is the extension, the runway we think we're going to get because of this accomplishment, then I'm more open to be like, yeah, you got to spend money to make money, right? But if it's just like, here's 75 grand going out the door, and we're going to make $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000, I'm still going to be in the camp of, we might be better served spending that money later and not spending it now, just when there's stuff that, like, I saw something the other day that talked about a potential exposure to crypto with some NFT thing or whatever, to like, it was an Amazon thing. It was an Amazon NFT thing that could impact 175 million customers in the US. And I was like, okay, something like that happens, and all of a sudden Amazon users have a crypto wallet for NFTs. That's interesting. And if we had somehow play in that pool, we might be in a 10% adoption or something along those lines, where FIO might have more of an interest to people with a larger pool to play in. So those are the type of things I'm going to start advocating for, to be like, if I can't see a rational approach that's going to get us where we want to go, I'm just going to keep saying we're spending too much money. We're spending too much money. But yeah, so to me, it relates to that question.
And to
on
me,
that, Luke, sorry, go ahead, Pablo. Yeah, that's kind of what I was just saying as well, Luke. I totally agree. I think we need that model. That's an important decision point for me.
and I actually have a contrary view to that. I don't believe that we will ever get something like that ahead of time with a high level of confidence, right? So we can get a list of initiatives, projects, ideas, things we want to experiment with. And if you press Wayne, strong enough, maybe he will even do some projections on it, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because they're all guesses, right? So I would actually assume that until we actually can prove that we can generate funds, revenue, meaningful revenue through some of those activities, it is basically money out the door and nothing coming in. So that's kind of how I look at this. And that's why, to answer your question, I would like this specific worker proposal. Obviously, I'm looking at it from the overall spend, right? So obviously, the way things are looking right now, the overall spend is primarily what you're proposing and what I'm proposing, right? That's most of the spend. But overall, I would be looking at about minimum 25%, ideally up to 40% in reduction of the overall budget, right? I'm not saying yours or mine or whatever, but just overall spend. So that's why I personally would be targeting anywhere from 50 to 60 on your budget, probably like 55 overall. So about a 20,000 reduction from where you are today. That's just my personal steering committee member view.
Related to that, Pablo, and it might be helpful for me to understand how to make my decision. Like, as it relates to the dashboard, I think you showed something that was like 60K or something. Do you feel similarly about the dashboard? Meaning you're not proposing there's going to be much coming back from that? Because for me, it's like, if I'm just to assume that we don't really know enough to even put something out there that we're aiming for, even if we're off, then it's like, well, by what criteria do we decide to spend 50 grand, 60 grand, or 120 grand? I'm struggling a little bit. If the answer is we don't know and it's just a lot of money we're going to spend, I'm like, well, okay, then let's not spend any of it. I'm still trying to, like, I feel like I want to at least see a plan. Like they say, planning is useless. The plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. It's like, I want to at least know that the process of a plan for sustainability across everything happens. We're like, hey, we're clear about this is what we think is going to happen, so we can see were we right or not. I guess otherwise it feels like we're just going to keep spending money without a vision, without a plan.
No, I think the plan is very important, Luke, in terms of what are the tactics that you're going to be doing. And that's what I was asking Wayne, is explicitly, I actually want us to be trying new things, because history shows us that what we have been doing is not very effective, right? So yes, I would like to see a tactics plan, and I would especially like to see a tactics plan that kind of lists all the different things that we're going to be trying. And I think in the spreadsheet that Dale was linking, some of this is there, and what Wayne said, some of this is there as well. So that's definitely valuable. What I would not do is I would not take those initiatives and say, oh, well, we think that it's going to generate $50,000 worth of revenue. Therefore, let's assume that, and let's offset the budget. I would say we're going to assume it's going to generate zero, but we hope we're wrong, and we'll continue to try different things. And if we identify something that's actually beginning to, generate revenue close to break even, then we can certainly come to the steering committee, or whoever is doing this, and say, hey, look, we've tried this little thing, we did this campaign, and we spent $5,000 and we generate $4,500 so in revenue. So it's only $500 in that spend. Let's do more of that, right? Let's spend $45,000, and maybe that will generate similar numbers. That's kind of how I will look at it. And as it relates to the dashboard specifically, and obviously that's a topic for tomorrow's conversation, but my proposal is actually not going to assume, and that's why it's actually not proposing any marketing spend. My proposal is going to be primarily focused on operating our infrastructure. So I think Wayne's proposal, the way I look at it, is basically primarily trying to get awareness and get users and get transactions and get revenue.
Yeah, I don't think the two of you are necessarily saying different things. I think that on the one hand, there should be, plans around the spend that's being done on the stuff Wayne's projects are working on, in terms of the goals, what they're trying to do to generate, net income overall. But from a planning standpoint and the cash flow, I agree with what Bob was saying. We should assume it's zero from a planning standpoint until we prove otherwise, right? But the worker proposal should have some plans and some goals on what it's trying to generate. So there's an assessment of, okay, how is this going? Should we continue doing this, 3 months in, 6 months in, right? Or should we cut it off?
Yeah, I like that. I think you're saying exactly what I'm trying to articulate, David. It's like, definitely, we're not going to adjust our budget based on random assumptions. I completely agree, Paula, that we just really don't know much, especially if we're trying something brand new, and which is what we do want to do. We want to try some new things. But at the same time, like David just said, I do want to at least say, I'm doing this and this with the intention that this is an outcome that's going to happen, which, we're hoping to generate revenue, and we're hoping to generate revenue in this way. And it's like, clearly, if that's not happening, I want to be able to look at it and say, hey, remember that thing you said that we were hoping to do? It looks like it's not happening. Let's not do it anymore. That's kind of what I feel like that's where we failed in the past. We haven't focused on revenue. And then when we have talked about revenue, it hasn't been super specific, like this activity directly, I think, is going to create revenue in this way at this level. We don't know, but we'll find out. But it's like, with that North Star, I mean, like, this goes back, I don't know, 2-3 years ago when I had a spreadsheet. I was pulling from Grafana and I was pulling from Coinbase Commerce for the registration site. And I was showing the real numbers. I was like, this is what's really happening. And I knew back then that this isn't sustainable. And we were okay with that, because we're like, hey, we're not a bootstrapping business. We're like more of a VC startup kind of thing. We got to just expand. But that's the type of thing I want to start looking at. Like, what are the hard numbers of what we're actually doing? And is it anywhere in the ballpark of what we thought was going to happen with the activities that we're trying? So it's like, as long as I'm getting that, I'm going to feel better about it. But it does include, putting some intentions out there. It does include saying, I think that this thing is going to have some legs if we do this, SaaS model, for example. And yeah, I think every business plan, every pitch deck, they all include a guess, a wet finger in the air to say, hey, I don't know for sure, but this is the market size. Here's what I think we can do. And, and then they get judged based on that by their shareholders and their investors. So I want to see something, even if it's just, as you said, not something we can know for sure. And I agree. I don't think we're just going to go changing the budget based on a whim, but I want to see something that I can start gauging against in the future. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Like I said, seeing the tactics, I think, is important, and from my standpoint as well. Ash, as a steering committee member, do you want, especially one that currently owns marketing, do you want to chime in? Do you have any questions, comments?
Yeah. So I think I agree with a lot of what's already been said in terms of narrowing down the KPIs to be more heavily focused on the revenue that will actually be driven. I think that secondary KPIs pertaining to customer acquisition cost or return on ad spend, which I think were a couple that you had suggested, Pavo. I think those are probably the best secondary KPIs to focus on. When it comes to any sort of tertiary KPIs in terms of, audience building, reach, awareness, I think those are a good metrics to keep an eye on, but probably not necessary to be included in the worker proposal unto itself, because I think at this point we're all very clear that the main focus needs to be revenue. One, I think, area of possible consideration is just that with the way that, on one hand, I love the idea of collaborating cross-departmentally like this, because I do think that it helps position us in a RevOps mindset, which I think is incredibly important. It's something that I've been proposing for quite a long time, so I'm in full support of that. When it comes to actually structuring the work proposal, my concern with grouping everything into a single worker proposal in this way is just that I think it's going to be difficult to tell what is and is not driving revenue. So I guess possibly one suggestion would be to break this single worker proposal out into kind of the areas that you have in slides, I guess it's slides 12 through 15, or maybe even just the 4 different resource areas you have recapped in slide 16. I think that might be a better way, or at least a more transparent way for you guys to be able to keep track of what is and isn't actually driving meaningful on-chain income profitably. And I think that one of the main reasons I think this might be especially helpful, especially with consideration to, trying to make sure that we are pursuing efficiency with our foundation treasury investments, is that the way it's currently structured, it looks more or less like there's still going to be 50,000 in total invested into, I'll just call it broad partner support. So by that, I mean sales, I mean partner onboarding, I mean partner marketing. And as it currently stands, that's, what is that, like two-thirds of the total proposed budget. And at the same time, I think we all know that our partner acquisition strategy, especially with that 5% in revenue driven back to the chain, I mean, we're looking at historically, like maybe in some of our best months were, $3,000, $4,000. So the idea, at least in my opinion, of continuing to invest $50,000 a month on growing our integration network on the partner ecosystem side, and then also investing into supporting and marketing against that, it doesn't make sense to me financially from an ROI perspective. I am not suggesting cut it all, but I do think that breaking the single worker proposal out into the separate functional areas will help make sure that the actual revenue driven by each of these areas is fully transparent, so that moving forward you can make better optimization decisions. I think overall that is my high level feedback and perspective. But yeah, hope that makes sense. That was a bit long-winded.
Actually, I kind of thank you, Ash, and I kind of agree with your thesis, although I actually disagree with breaking it up. So in other words, I think you're right. Partner, some of the partner activities may yield lower results than going direct because of the huge TPID rewards that we're paying out, right? Which is 50% out of the 55 as revenue. So in some regard, you're right. We should probably be spending this money more kind of on trying to reach users direct. But I also think that having it as part of a single worker proposal actually lets the lead more dynamically make that realization and say, hey, we're spending this money over here, we're making 5%, our KPI is revenue. What if we actually spent, reallocated some of this money towards activities that are going to generate higher revenue, and make that dynamically without having to, repitch the worker proposals and adjust, things and saying, okay, this is not working, we're going to cut here and increase here. So that's my feedback on that. Any other comments or feedback? Maybe anything from the broader community, not just the steering committee? Okay, so I think.
Let me,
Yeah.
hey, Bob, I just want to leave the floor open for others, but since no one did jump in, I just want to ask another question. I think it kind of relates to what Ash said about I think it was a mention of 50 grand in relationship to like partner activities and partner marketing and things of that nature. Can you kind of clarify, because I do think this is an interesting concern in that kind of in the past, even from the very beginning, the model was just, you know, throw a bunch of tokens at integration partners. I mean, that was the original plan. And, you know, and then we did that. We executed that plan. We got a lot of integration partners, but we didn't get the volume of usage that we were hoping for to be sustainable. So I think everyone's clear on that, and we've made a shift in our strategy. And so as it relates to your proposal, can you kind of clarify how much you've taken that to heart and how much we're adjusting, for example, you know, the marketing budget and things of that nature to really no longer focus on the supremacy of partner integrations, you know, like even discussed, like Pava said, like that, not even having it as a KPI for these large integrations, because ultimately it doesn't move the needle for us as we've learned, right? So the idea of educational content, you know, things of that nature, I think more is kind of like a retail, almost product based, like building your newsletter. People who want your content, so you can do a drip campaign to buy domains and stuff like. You know, my understanding is your proposal is shifting away from what we've done in the past in a significant way of the spend to not focus so much on the business development, partner integration, that type of thing. But there is talk of, you know, doing this newsletter to our partners and things like that. And again, you know, I get it if we can actually turn that into domain sales and stuff. But I just, yeah, if you could just clarify, because I do think that's a really important critique and concern, that we've been doing something that hasn't worked. How are you demonstrating that we're significantly shifting the budget away from what we've done in the past that hasn't worked, kind of a deal? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say I'd almost say, you know, I disagree with saying it's 50K going towards partner, because a part of the BD strategy is going to be, besides just focusing on large partners, which we think would work, but also that SaaS model, having sellable products, whether having some educational products that we're going to offer Web 2 to Web 3 onboarding, and then offer the MetaKeep product. So a portion of that is allocated towards that to drive actual revenue. And then the Rev Ops is mainly just to manage across to where we find the overarching strategies, use those overarching strategies to drive effectiveness of the marketing, of the content. And if you look at the breakdown of the marketing spend, it actually gives us, you know, it is the most heavy in terms of people, because we can produce a lot from this in combination with the media spend. We can drive more people to it. We can drip, but even the partner marketing spend, where we're going to be doing some, you know, I mentioned our strategy to do more marketing campaigns with our partners. I mean, how many people do you think we're going to also drive to the dashboard as well? Because maybe they have an Edge wallet, but they also want to get some handles to map to other campaigns. So we're going to, even our marketing strategy to our existing partners and future partners communities, they're going to know that, hey, you can even use these handles and domains even if your favorite wallet or exchange hasn't integrated yet, because you can go to the dashboard, you can buy domains. So there's a lot of overarching strategies there, but we're heavily focused in output in marketing, because that is our biggest thing. Is we've got to create engaging content, and we've got to get it out there, and we've got to get new channels to where we're not just, like Pablo has a great point, we're not just marketing to our existing followers. We're not just getting those, but we're growing that reach, finding different ways. And so, when this one's over, I'll set a follow-up. We've got those strategies already outlined, going to pull them together in one single presentation of how those strategies are going to be used. And there's some overarching strategies there that are that could impact both. They could impact our partner side, impact our dashboard and our internal side, and just it could really just help all around, which is why we need everybody focused on the same team. So it's not just saying, oh, the partner results have been bad in the past, so we're just going to continue to do that. Even our partner strategies, as I mentioned, are different. where we're focusing on adding additional integration features, elements, and additional marketing there, because we feel like we're not a one and done with our partners. We got to continue that relationship. So even on the partner side, it's there's spin there, but it's also, we're not saying we're going to keep doing the same thing we've been doing and hope to get different results. We're actually changing it up, and that change up is going to have to show up in the results as we're going to be presenting once we get a final budget approved. We'll be executing and following up, with the steering committee monthly, just to share what those results are and what we're doing to impact them.
I guess another way of saying what I think was said, Wayne, is whatever you do on the partner side in general, not even partner marketing, just acquiring partners and selling through partners, because we're only making 5%, whereas on direct we're making 55%. You have to be 10 times as efficient on the partner side as you are on the direct side to make the same amount of money, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, I get what you're saying with basic math, but if I'm spending, if we're spending if we spend $5,000 to drive traffic to the dashboard and we generate, $5,000 in revenue, that's a net zero. Whereas if we do more campaigns with our partners, with existing staff and our content that we can create from internally, we can generate revenue. So I definitely get where you're coming from. There's obviously a bigger benefit to driving traffic to the dashboard, but I think it's a and strategy and not an or. We need to be doing both.
Yeah, but that partner marketing cost also has cost, right? So yeah, you didn't pay it in media, but you have a lot of staff that is paid monthly to generate that. And I'm not necessarily saying one is better than the other. What I would like you to think, though, is really think in terms of generating revenue, and that was actually one of my reasoning for recommending folding the KPIs, is because from my standpoint, I don't care if you sign 100,000 partners. If they generate, $500 worth of revenue, it doesn't matter at this stage, right? What matters is that there is revenue, and you can argue the same thing for how many active users a partner has. This is irrelevant as well, right? If they build it in such a way that nobody sees it, and therefore nobody makes a registration, and we make no revenue, then it doesn't matter either, right? That's why I think it's healthier to just say your job is to generate revenue. And if you think you can efficiently do it through partners, do it. If you think you can shift this money to direct marketing and make more revenue that way, then do that, right? And that's actually part of the reason why I would support having it under one worker proposal, so that you can more dynamically make those allocations as you learn and discover that, hey, maybe we're spending so much money on partners in general, and here's how much revenue we're generating versus, on the direct marketing side, maybe we should shift things around. I think you have that flexibility, but I guess from my steering committee member perspective is that number one KPI of revenue should be the overarching API. KPI. It's more important than whether we do support partners or not. If one day you decide, what, actually we can generate more revenue by shutting down partners altogether, that's fine. If that's what actually generates more money, then that's what we should be doing.
Pavel, I mean, it's a little confusing because we do have an increased adoption and utilization strategic objective as well. Are you suggesting maybe that shouldn't be on the list and we really just focus on revenue?
Well, that is a good point. And then historically, we always kind of struggle with that, right? And I've always had some of those KPIs on the dashboard as well. And so yes, it's not as clear cut as I just said. There is some desire to potentially still have new partners integrate so that we can announce it to the world, and it kind of makes the protocol more alive, and people see that things are happening. So it's not as clear cut, but I would say, honestly, given where we are, I would suggest that we're probably 90% focused on revenue KPI and 10% focused on some of the other KPIs.
Yeah, but we also need partners, because the dashboard is not an all-inclusive solution in terms of, if I want to send from a wallet, that partner has to enable FIO send. So there are elements. I mean, and FIO send, we know, does not generate any revenue for us, but it increases the demand, which you would expect to drive engagement. And so there still needs to be somewhat of a focus on that. Now, obviously, revenue is front and center. That's our main KPI we're driving to. And I agree, Pablo, whatever's driving that, that's what we focus on and pour fuel on the fire. And that's even the same strategy as when we look at individually. When I look at our media spend, and it's going to be the same thing. We're going to, what works, what doesn't work, and we're going to pour fuel on the fire, what works. But we can't forget, just like some of those elements, like within core infrastructure, right? They're important whether they generate revenue or not. And when you look at the partner side of it, there's elements of that partner success. The breakdown that I had, the slide for partner success, that's not partner marketing, that's partner success. Has a very small element of marketing in there that the marketing team is also going to be helping with, because we're in the same proposal. But the integration support, the ability to help those partners get those integrations done, which should drive to more utilization of the FIO protocol, which should drive more handles, which should drive more domain sales. And whether that's on the partner side or the dashboard side, as I mentioned, if someone's using, we need to market the dashboard to our integration partners communities, because yes, they're using the FIO protocol in an integrated wallet or exchange or whatever it may be. But hey, there's also a dashboard. You can use it for all, because most people have multiple exchanges, multiple wallets. If you got a cold storage that's not in it, they can use that dashboard to map to. So even our strategy on partner, I think we have the ability to sell through a dashboard too, to where we can capture a TPIT on some of that stuff.
And just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we kill off partners altogether. I was just trying to kind of put the argument that I think Ash and Luke were making into a slightly different light. I agree, we should continue to work with partners, acquire partners, and make sure that they are successful. I'm 100% in agreement with that, and there is some work that needs to go towards satisfying those other objectives and KPIs that are not directly revenue related. But I'm just kind of trying to make you think of how much in terms of resources you put into one versus the other, right? That's probably the conversation that we're having here.
Yeah, and I'm just as well, like, there's been a lot of questions about the value proposition for how we're approaching partners, right? Wayne, you know that, and that is where hopefully some of these initiatives start to get clear. And I do agree with Ash as well, and Pavo, like, that needs to be clarified, because it's still vague for me. We kind of know that they're valuable. We know they're valuable in certain ways. They're valuable different if we send them to the dashboard versus if they're integrated. All those questions maybe need to start getting worked out a little bit to clarify why we're investing there. Yeah,
and we've got that. I can just pull that together, add it to the presentation, and do a follow-up. It's just when I was looking at this presentation as consolidation, it's my misconception that you guys are interested in the strategy, but the whole point is the effectiveness. What are the KPIs? What does it spend? So we do have the strategies that I'm going to pull together in one document across all, just to show the strategies to drive revenue. And to the point, it's not necessarily, you can't really forecast or predict what that revenue is going to be, but some kind of expectation of what would be, minimum to make it successful.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the comments I made to you, Wayne, over the last few days. Was like, to me, even the breakdown is less relevant. Like, you have like the breakdown. Here's how much money is going to partner marketing versus Rev Ops, whatever, right? At the end of the day, to me, that is less relevant, right? And I definitely would not even hold you to it. I would actually expect you to dynamically reallocating this money, even month to month. Like, hey, this month we have a better opportunity to work on marketing, so maybe the whole team is going to work on direct marketing campaign, and maybe very little on partners, right? And maybe next month it's the other way around. So I think that's a better approach, like kind of focusing more on the activities that you plan to support, as opposed to the budget that's going to each one of those areas. Like that's what I'm going to be proposing tomorrow. Is you're not going to see a breakdown of how much is going to chain versus how much is going to dashboard. It's just going to be, hey, this is the team that's going to pull all of those areas and work on whatever is required. Now, obviously, there is some specialization where you can't expect everybody to be able to do anything, right? But other than that, to be able to shift priorities, I think is very important. Any other questions, comments? All right, so what I would suggest is, Wayne, obviously you got a lot of feedback here on the worker proposal. Me personally, I'm actually going to post maybe in the elites channel kind of specific feedback of kind of to summarize what I said, what I would like to see in this proposal, to kind of vote up that worker proposal. I would encourage other steering committee members to kind of, maybe formalize this as well in writing. I think it might help, but you don't have to do it. And then Wayne, once you're ready for kind of the next round, maybe let me know and I'll schedule that and we'll review it. Obviously, the goal is to get to a point where the steering committee members have enough information to vote and ideally vote, to the affirmative to approve the worker proposal. Obviously, we probably want to go through at least the one tomorrow, if not the next couple of days, to kind of get a better feel for the overall spend. But that's kind of the next steps, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I had already looked at the schedule. I was thinking, I see on the 9th, there's already 2 that day. And then the next one after that's the 13th. So I would say at the latest would be that 9 a.m. Mountain Time on the 13th is when I'd like to do the next, unless there's time slot comes up sooner. Like, there's no calls on Friday,
Yeah,
right?
I think it's probably, that probably makes sense, is kind of try to shoot for that Monday.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I would say let's go ahead and do that now. I mean, I'm gonna a lot of the strategy that was asked for is pulled together. So once I've got the feedback, I've got notes from this call. I'm gonna go back through my note taker and anything that's added in the WP lead. I'm gonna take all that into consideration and get everything ready for that presentation. So say the 13th.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, if there's nothing else, thanks so much, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.